All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. Good morning, Peter.
Good day, Bill, and everyone listening.
Here we go. We are in episode number 369. Wow, we're cranking along with all these episodes. Today's episode title is Secret Wholesaling Lease Option Checklist Revealed. Here's the description. If you are looking to unravel the mysterious world of megabucks wholesaling lease options, then today's journey is going to make you feel like you hit the lottery. This is going to be more than a checklist, but instead about looking at how to profit from real estate quickly through a lens you never knew existed, and why this step-by-step process has been so coveted, and the reason why some have soared and some have soared to success quickly while others have barely scratched the surface. As we unravel each element, your attention will be gripped by a growing realization of the untapped potential that's been right under your nose the whole time. You'll find yourself rethinking strategies, questioning norms, and itching to dive into the world of wholesaling lease options. So, are you ready to uncover what's been hidden in plain sight? To embark on a journey that is not only promises just answers, but a whole new perspective on creative real estate and how it fits into your world? Dive in and let
Okay.
begin for you right now. Ta-da! Here we go.
There's some bold promises there, Mr. Hawthorne.
Yeah, I think I can handle it. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the housekeeping stuff. I apologize to our weekly listeners, but I have to do it. Otherwise, I get slain by my youngest daughter, Emma. Dad, you didn't. Anyways, so here we go. So make sure you subscribe to us or like us wherever you're watching us or listening to us. That is very important for our social presence. We like that. Also, we record every Thursday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you'd like to be part of the podcast, you can go to Facebook or YouTube, and in the comment section, or in Facebook, I forgot what it's called. I think it's called comment section. You could type in there a question, and it comes right to us directly. I only answer questions pertaining to the podcast because I don't want to distract our time. The podcast, if you've noticed, is timed for about an hour and 5 minutes every single week. So that's carefully designed that way. So if we get too sidetracked, then we make the podcast longer and we lose downloads and all kinds of things. However, if you do have a question outside of the podcast, I will gladly answer them. You could do one of two things. We have a platform on WhatsApp called Let's Talk Real Estate. There's about 100 people in there, so it kind of goes up and down, of like-minded real estate investors that trade deals and talk real estate, and they're all part of the group, and they're a bunch of good guys and gals, and they will help you. Or you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. Top right-hand side of the screen, there's a support link. Send that to me directly for a question for myself or Peter, and I will make sure that they get answered, usually fairly quick, usually within a day, and I make sure I help you. I get a lot of questions there, Pete, so I definitely help a lot of people. Sometimes it's just as simple as a deal structure. I'll have people that are on this podcast. We've had many people on this podcast reach out to us and tell us just what we've taught them on this podcast. Of course, with 369 episodes at this point, there's a lot of information. that means there's probably over 400 hours worth of material that you could listen to, right? And people have told us they've done deals just from listening to our podcast, right? And we've had a lot of that. So it is possible you'll get into a deal and have trouble and need some help, and I will answer your help to a point where I feel like if I'm coaching you, then I'll make you get into my coaching group. But other than that, it's cool. Okay, so you could do that on those platforms. So Topher says, hello, gentlemen.
Hey, Topher.
And Pete says it back. So welcome. Glad you're here. All right, so we're done with all that. Oh, the last thing is I put a link in the description that will help you with today's tools. So I'm going to go over a checklist. The only place to have that checklist is in our software. So I sent you there, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I don't remember where I sent you. I did it yesterday. I can't remember, but I sent you to where you can find the checklist. Okay. So here we go, Peter. Today's going to be a marathon. We have a lot to cover.
I'll keep my remarks succinct.
But first of all, you don't have to do that. But first, I want our listeners to know here on Bill's Planet, meaning my world, we don't call this structure wholesaling lease options, although that is what we are doing. It's called a slot deal, which means sandwich lease option transfer. Sandwich lease option transfer, which is what is that acronym, right? Is that right?
Yeah,
an acronym.
Yeah, it's the initials of the words slot.
Sandwich lease option transfer. Yeah. So in the beginning, Peter, if you remember, which I'm sure you do, it was a joke, right? The slot deal. Let's talk about a slot deal, Peter. We would talk about in the car. That's back in the day when we used to do several appointments a week, and God bless Peter. He'd let me smoke my cigars in the car, and the car would be full of smoke, and we'd be laughing and recording videos at some point, having a good old time, talking crap, talking business, right? Me being me, which is not always easy for Peter to deal with sometimes, talking shit, right? So anyways, it became a deal, because the reason why is because when you see how we do this, you could literally give somebody any legal tender is the legal term for it. So when you do an option agreement with someone, you have to give them legal tender, and legal tender means paper money. So it could be $1, it could be $10, it could be $20, it could be $50 or $100, right? Any legal tender. Yeah. So in the beginning, I used to give $10. The first time I did it, I gave a guy $10. I signed an option agreement, and 5 weeks later, I collected a check for $18,000. Right. So it's a certain time to do that kind of stuff, but when it happens, it's beautiful. So the reason why we call it a slot machine is because I said to Peter in the car, joking around, yeah, Peter, it's kind of like a slot machine. You put $10 in, you pull the lever, and 10,000 comes out.
That's right.
That's exactly what it's like, right? So honestly, this is how this deal works. You just put in your money and you pull the lever, and there you go. The money comes out. So
what I like about it is a lot of people talk about wholesaling, where you just take something and flip it. Just kind of getting in the middle. This is more work, where maybe the seller's having trouble selling, he's over leveraged, and we're finding people who can't buy, and we help them out. It's really more of a service than just let's see if we can make a quick buck. Because I don't like just straight wholesaling. Neither do you. This is a different animal, and it's good for everybody.
Yeah, and also to your point, I mean, if we get too dissected or too distracted, but wholesaling as we know it in the industry is actually a misnomer, right? Because it's wholesaling ugly houses. So you need a significant discount to cover the holding cost and the cost of money and the cost of repairs and all that stuff, and it's got to cover your profit, and there's just that's what Ron LeGrand's Mayo formula does, the 30%, because it's ARV after renovated value times 70%. That 30% is supposed to cover all of that, right? And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. That formula has actually got a flaw in it, because if you cover your private money in there, then your margins are usually pretty thin.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, so what we're doing is we're wholesaling pretty houses. So when you're wholesaling ugly houses, you have to send it to an investor that has capital, they have crews, they have they're in the neighborhood, they know where it is, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
When you're wholesaling pretty houses, you don't need any of that. Most people don't realize about 80 or 81% of the population that is looking for a house today, excuse me, doesn't qualify for a bank mortgage.
Mm.
So that means that 80% or 81% is our pool of buyers. Where if you're flipping ugly houses, it's only 19 or 20% is a pool that could go get the money and cash you out.
Well, wouldn't it be small in that because you're really looking for investors?
Yeah, and even that, yeah.
Yeah, so you're going to get really tight. Yeah. So, yeah.
So when we sign an option agreement with the seller for 2 or 3 years, using the seller's asking price and current monthly payment with only a $10 deposit. So basically, what's happening is we're not. And I did this podcast how creative real estate actually works. I forgot the podcast name, a number, but we talked about what is creative real estate. Creative real estate is controlling what controls the property, and that's the paperwork. So a lot of times we're not dealing with the property. The property has nothing to do with it other than it's an excuse to write the paperwork.
Mm.
Right? The property has nothing to do with the transaction at all. Right? And I always say that real estate is made to take money out of, not put money into it. And the reason why is because the seller has already put the money into the property. We just need to leverage that money for them, so it's of value or rewarding to them to be able to do a transaction and have a time delay on their cash. So I just did a webinar last night and we talked about that completely. Like it's my new thing. We call it the Grand Slam offer, right? We talked about it on episode number 360, right? So what that means is that if the seller sells for all cash, they're being penalized because they got to spend 15% of their transaction to pay all the professionals to get their cash.
That's right.
So it's a discounted cash number.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, we say to them, "Will you give us a discount?" "Oh, no! I'm asking for 200,000. I'll do maybe 195." Having no realization that when they go over to the realtor system, they're discounting 15% because by the time they pay all the closing costs, they're only netting 85% of the deal. They have no idea that happens, right? So, anyways, that's the difference between the two. So when we find a buyer that's willing to do this option, right, which is the right to buy but not the obligation to buy, right? When they sign this option and we give them our $10, we are actually going to go find a buyer and assign that option agreement to our buyer.
Mm-hmm.
Now we will pay our seller. We use $100, so I'm going to use that because it's easier for me to talk about. We pay them $100 for an option consideration deposit or fee. It's an option consideration fee. When we give the seller the $100 and we fill out an option agreement, the option agreement gives us the right to sell that property, but not the obligation. So if the price of the house goes from $200,000 down to $180,000, the only thing we lose is the $100 we put up for the option consideration deposit. If it was $200,000 and we went off and sold the property to somebody else for $220,000, then that means that our $100 just made $20,000.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that means you're buying a piece of paper for $100 and you're selling it for $20,000. That's all we're doing here.
Okay? I thought of a word for that while you were talking about 2 minutes ago. And it's really, we're buying and selling opportunity. It's paperwork, but it's the opportunity for folks. By the way, why would anybody pay way over asking price? Nobody would do that. That's crazy, Bill.
Yeah. So if I were to sell you my computer today for $1,000 and you gave me $1,000 worth of cash, you paid $1,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you bought my computer today for $1,000 and you swiped it on your credit card and made 24 payments, you're no longer paying $1,000, right?
No, it's something more than that.
The American way. I did invent it. So if they want to buy my house for $200,000, then give me $200,000. If you want to pay for it over the course of 24 months, which is 2 years or 3 years, then you got to pay more.
Yeah.
That's just how it works.
They're paying the extra for the opportunity to wait a year or 2 or 3 before they cash out. So it's another interim besides the bank part and the mortgage and the loan and all that. It's another interim part. So they pay a little extra for that. Otherwise these people get stuck in an apartment and they can never buy a house. So for them, it's a great opportunity, and it actually saves them money in the long run. We're not even gouging them.
So let's keep going. That's all good information. But the last thing I want to say before we go is these slot deals or these wholesale lease option deals, the way we do them, and we're not different than a lot of people, but I'm very particular with my paperwork because what are we buying and selling, Peter?
The paperwork.
So we got to be good at it, right?
Yeah, well, you have to cover everything so that we're protected, the seller's protected, and the buyer is protected. Everybody knows what the deal is.
So when we assign this option with the lease attached to it, you're not going to assign the lease. You're going to create a lease between your buyer and your seller. You're just going to assign the option, the rights to buy.
Yeah.
Okay. For your $10,000 or $20,000, whatever you're going to get. Okay. Mm-hmm. What you're going to do is you're going to make the lease so that so here's a big point that I will go on way too long about because most people misunderstand this. They take it as a piece of information, and it's not. This is the core of the system, and if you don't get this concept, you will get in trouble.
Oh.
When we say rent to own, we do not do that. We don't rent first, own later. We actually own to rent. So basically what happens is when we sell the person a house, they own the house. We're just giving them a 2-year lease to go get the money. Mm-hmm. So because they own the house, they are responsible for the maintenance and the repairs and cutting the grass and doing the snow and fixing the toilet. And they are not going to call us. And the position we're going to put our seller in is the bank. And a perfect example of that is if you had a plugged toilet today, you wouldn't call your bank and say, come fix it, would you? Right? That's the position we're putting our seller in when we do this. So the seller is not a landlord. When you do this, you are not a landlord. You're a bank. You're borrowing the money from your seller and giving it to your buyer, and it's actually an intermediate loan until they can get qualified.
Yep.
If you do it the other way, what happens is, first of all, the first mistake that's made is that the monthly amount you charge is wrong because most people will go to rentometer or rentometer, however you say it, and they'll go there, what's the average rent? Well, we're not renting. So if the average rent is $1,300 and you want to get $1,500, the first question I get is, how am I going to charge $1,500? No. What you need to do is figure out if they were to go get a $220,000 mortgage, what would their mortgage amount be? And the reason why we do that is because we don't want to be less than what the mortgage is. So if the mortgage amount is going to say be $1,500 and the rent is $1,300, if we're charging them $1,300 when it's time for them to go get a loan, they're not going to want to go up $200 a month for a payment, even though they can buy it. They'll either move or they won't pay and they'll drag their feet. Sure. But if you're charging them $1,700 a month and you're telling them up front, I'm charging you an extra $200 to go get your loan, and it's an initiative for you to do that. And oh yeah, by the way, the first 12 months on our option agreements is only that's the price we sell to is only good for 12 months. After that, we elevate the price of the house either by 0.25% or 0.5%, which is a difference between 3 or 6% appreciation raise in the option. So the sweet spot for them is in the first 12 months. They can pay what they bought with what we told them. We give them 12 months to go get a mortgage. But if we're charging them $1,700 a month, they'll get a relief in the mortgage payment because maybe they'll get the mortgage for $1,500.
Yep.
We want them to be motivated to go get the mortgage. Otherwise, they'll never cash us out.
And in today's market, like with the rents going up, would you change the lease amount, like the second year, third year, if it goes on?
I'm going to start doing that. I haven't figured out how. I need to talk to somebody about that, but I'm going to start doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, because rents lately went crazy, so that you could get.
We're way past time. I have someone that's been texting me for the last couple of days. This girl is she's actually a tenant. I acquired her. She's been in this house. When we bought this house 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago at this point, she had been there for 9 years, her and her husband.
Oh boy.
the house is kind of like ratty. You know, they're slobs. They've been there for now 13, 14 years. And so anyways, I fixed the kitchen floor for her, but I told her, I do not do this. I'm not a landlord. You guys should buy this house from me. I will give you a spectacular deal. And just buy this house. You've been there a long time. Stop paying rent. Start paying a mortgage. Right?
Sure.
She's been texting me about there's a hole in the floor, in a bedroom floor in the corner of the house. Right. So I basically sent her a text back saying, don't call me. You're harassing me. If you text me one more time, I'm blocking you on my phone.
Yeah.
Because she's every day, 2-3 times a day. And here's the reason why. They're in a house that's worth $180,000 and they're paying $800 a month.
Oh my God.
And they've been there, and I haven't raised the rent in 5 years. And yeah, I have to go in and spend 30 grand on the house to fix it. But here's the point. Just what you're saying. They're paying $800 a month. The current rent on that property is between $1,300 and $1,500.
No wonder she's complaining. She's getting away with murder.
So there you go. Okay. So to your point, right? To your point exactly. If I had an elevated lease agreement in there, I wouldn't be in that position. Okay. All right, the checklist. Let's get down to business. We're a little bit longer, I'm going to have to move right along here. Okay, so here's what we're going to do first, Peeper. Okay, Peeper. All right, so here's what we're going to do first. Before you do this checklist, you must have the following requirements done. And this is where a lot of folks miss the boat. So they're all worried about what are the steps and how to do the steps, but there is a prerequisite to every transaction that you need to make sure is in before you could do the checklist or do the deal. If you don't make sure these things are in, then what will happen is you will lose your customer. They will at some point ghost you, meaning they will disappear and they won't respond. So if you have people that are ghosting you, it's because your pre-qualifying step is out.
Sure.
You're not telling them enough about the deal. They're going somewhere else, getting that information and saying, oh, I don't want to do that. He lied to me. You don't want that to happen. You want to be upfront and transparent as much as you can. Right. And oh yeah, by the way, I will tell you that most people, when you talk to them, oh, I have so much charge on this. I have so much built up anxiety and like so much like, oh my God. Most people, when you talk to them, aren't listening to you. They're thinking about what they're going to say next, or they're thinking about, they have some confusion, some words you use, and they're all stumbled up on like, what did he just say?
Oh, yeah.
Right? And it's just unbelievable. So even though you're explaining to your seller, this is how it works, they aren't getting it. So me personally, I've never said this out loud, never mind on a airwave with people listening to me. I keep it at a third grade level.
Yeah.
That's
the correct grade.
Because a lot of people just don't understand.
Yeah.
All right. So here's some prerequisites, and I'm not going to explain them in full detail. I'm just going to kind of tell you what they are.
Sure.
So the math in every deal. So there's two parts of every deal. There's math, meaning the money structure. So you make sure you know where your money now, money monthly, money later is coming from. A slot deal is money now only. It's not money monthly, money later, because you are going to do this transaction within 30 days. You're going to come into it, sign a lease. You're going to go find a buyer, and then you're going to put you're going to assign the lease to the buyer and you're going to assign the option to your buyer and then make a lease. So the transaction is there. So you are getting paid your profit for doing that. So you got to make sure that the owner does not owe more than 110% of the loan to value ratio or the market value. In other words, their loan to value ratio should not exceed 110%. So if the house is worth 100 and they owe 108, you could do the deal.
Yep.
I have too many coaching clients, and I can name their names that have tried. I had one guy that was told by another coach, by the way, which was a mistake. And I didn't, it was his coaching call. So I kind of just kept my mouth shut. But the house was appraised at $550, and they're trying to sell it for $695.
Mm.
And then a month later, the student comes back and says, well, it was too much.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So number one, that's number one. So number two, the seller's willing to have a delayed cash out.
Mm-hmm.
So the seller knows they're not getting money now. Okay. And if they want deposit money, the most I will do is 50% of my down payment. And I calculate my down payment at 3%. So
Right.
I'm going to try for 5%. I'm going to ask for 10%.
Mm-hmm.
I often nowadays get 5% now and 5% in monthly payments that we call down payment assistance.
Yep.
Which, by the way, I just gave you a huge little secret there.
Yeah. You think that's small, but boy, that adds up real good, doesn't it?
So pay attention to this. You get an option agreement, right?
Yeah.
And the option agreement is for $200,000. You go find a seller that will pay you $220,000.
A buyer.
They give, a buyer that will give you $220,000.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they give you $10,000 now, and they give you $400 a month for 24 months, or $500 a month for 24 months for the other 10 grand.
Mm-hmm.
So what had just happened? On a house you didn't even own, you have no documents on, all you have is this note, this unsecured note, and they're paying you $400 or $500 a month for the next 24 months. And the seller knows it.
Yeah, well, they got their money, and we got our money.
Now, first question I get is, what happens if they don't pay? They don't pay. So
you don't owe it. You don't owe anything to anybody. It's just more money in your pocket, or not more money in your pocket. So more money or not more is never less. It's not a problem. You already got paid.
As you said earlier, the opportunity, right? So,
yeah.
So the point is that you, if they paid 10 payments and you got 5,000, so instead of getting 10, now you got 15. You just go as long as you can, and if they don't pay, yeah, you might try to scare them a little bit, but they don't pay. There's nothing you're going to do about it.
Well, we don't own the house. We walked away from the deal. We put the buyer and seller together. They're doing the deal, and it's just like checks in the mail. So why not? But it also helps them because they don't have to borrow as much from the bank.
Right.
So it's not like we're just sucking money out of them. They borrow less from the bank. They have a less payment one of these days. So it's okay.
Exactly. All right. So let's move on. So what I'm going to tell you is that this delayed cash out is no less than 24 months. Do not do 1-year lease options. They will come back and sting you in the butt every time, because a year happens in about 3.5 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
So don't do less than 24 months. If you listen to episode number 260, it's called, I'm going to actually probably come out with a product with this in a little while, but I've been too busy with Creative REA Replay to do that. It's actually part of that system now. But you could we try to do 3-year lease options now, because, like, for example, I did a webinar the other day, and the house was a $200,000 house. Our offer to the seller was $280,000.
Mm.
Because by the time they got the closing cost elimination fees, and then they got cash flow, and then they got principal reduction, and they had IRS depreciation and appreciation, and ended up being $80,000. So we show them how they could make a shit ton of money by holding on to the property. If they were to sell a $200,000 house for cash, they would get 170 grand, 175 grand.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. But we're going to show them how they can get $280,000. So it's in the presentation. It's in the script. If you go listen to podcast number 260, you can hear all of that. I actually do the role playing with you, Peter, and it's pretty cool.
Oh, that was 360, right?
What did I keep saying? 260?
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for correcting me this morning.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to do but just watch the numbers for you.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad you're there. All right. So the seller knows, this is number 3. The seller knows that you're going to lease option the property to a buyer. So they know you're not living in it, that you're going to pass it on, and you're going to, and it's not a sublease. It's just passing the deal on. So if you agree to pay $1,700 a month, your buyer is going to pay $1,700 a month. Okay. If you agree to 2 years, your buyer is going to agree to 2 years. It's actually kind of funny, Peter. This is a play on words, but it's kind of like a subject to for leases. Right.
Whoa, wait a minute.
So
Okay.
you
What?
sign a lease. You sign a lease with your seller,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
you give it to your buyer subject to your lease agreement.
Oh God. You had to say that. Not my. That I didn't need that. You take that back.
All right. So the seller knows that your fee, we don't call it a fee, your profit is coming from the buyer between the difference of what you sell for and what you pay him or her.
Yeah.
You are inflating the price, so they're saving all this money,
Mhm.
right? In this particular case, they're making $80,000 and don't even realize it because they're going to get all these benefits they don't even know they're going to get, which is cash flow, which is principal reduction, which is IRS deduction and depreciation. They're going to get those and don't even know they're getting them. And they will never add them up. They're going to get them no matter what.
Jeez. Man, what if they did their own taxes, never went to an accountant, and never even found out?
Exactly.
Because they're not professional landlords who were working on that. They could totally miss that.
So they know up front that this is happening. They know that you're going to sell for more than what you're paying. You say, I'm going to get, the reason why I'm not charging you any money, Mr. Seller, is because I'm going to get the buyer to pay my fee. You don't have to pay my fee. You can save all your money. They're going to like that because they owe 200 and they need to sell for 200, or they're free and clear and they're just trying to get every little last nickel out of it because they've been saving like a savings account for the last 30 years and they feel like they should just get all the money. Mm. They won't use a realtor because they don't want to pay the fee, right?
Sure.
All right, so here we go. So the next thing that you need to know is that you're going to need 90 days to go find your buyer.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably do it in a week or two. Most often it's 30 days. I'm going to tell you there's only two things that causes a house not to sell.
Okay.
The price is too high or it's dysfunctional, meaning that there's a bathroom in the middle of the swimming pool, right? Yeah. Or the attic is where the kitchen is, or mm-hmm. I had a house one time like that. The kitchen was in the basement and the whole upstairs was a living room. We looked at a house like that one time in Waterbury, right? So it's dysfunctional. Mostly what happens in older houses like here in Meriden, Connecticut, a lot of the houses are 75, 100 years old. What happens is there's bedrooms without closets, or you got to walk through one bedroom to get to another bedroom. There's no hallway, mm-hmm. Because there was one big bedroom and somebody put a wall in the middle of it for their kids, and it's considered, 5 bedrooms when it's really only 3 bedrooms. And so the only reason why you normally don't sell is because of price or dysfunction, right? So yeah. Sign a 90-day agreement. It's better to over deliver by coming in early than to say I'll do a 30 and have to go look for an extension later. Okay? Mm-hmm. So the other thing the seller needs to know is they're going to have a final say on who you pick for the person that is going to lease from them. So what we use is I use apartments.com to advertise my properties. I get a lot of deals from there. And in there, I think they now charge $30, $25 or $30 for a background check. Mm-hmm. So before the person that's and it doesn't matter where you go, you can use that link for anybody, even if you're showing it to people around the neighborhood. You send them the link and they pay the $30 or whatever apartments.com charges. And they do a background check for you. And the background check is good because it checks obviously credit, it checks eviction, it checks sex crimes, it checks court hearings, it checks criminal record, it checks drug, if there's a way to any drug related stuff, it checks all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And so you're going to get that report before you pick your seller, and you're going to bring that report to your seller and say, hey, here, I would pick this guy or girl because, and that'll show you, it will also show you their, not always, but often it'll show you their moving history. So where they've been in the last 10 years. That doesn't always show up. If it's available, you'll get it. If it doesn't, then you won't. But
sure.
So in essence, the seller will have the final say on who's doing the deal with them, right? So you need to tell them that, right? And mm-hmm. and the reason why you're doing that is because you want them to be comfortable, so there's not a problem later on. And at the end of the day, you'll say, "Well, you picked them, not me,"
sure.
right? So the thing that I always emphasize is I tell the seller, You don't have to take the person I chose, but I'm going to tell you, after we go through 2 or 3 of them, I'm going to think you're being too picky and you're going to blow the deal up. So I'm not bringing you like 100 people, right? Because what I know is it takes 150, 125, 150 people to look at an ad, 20 or 30 people to get through a house to get 1 to 5 offers. So I'm not going to have my seller blow through my 1 to 5 offers and say, bring me somebody else, because I'm not going to do that, because it's kind of like, the what is the word I want? The climax has already occurred. You're not going to get another 150 people looking at ad, the same ad.
Right.
And you're not going to get another 20 or 30 people to go through the house because they're just not in the market. Right. So I make sure that I tell them that. So,
yeah.
So the seller needs to know that the lease is going to handle the maintenance and repairs, that the buyer is responsible for them. He is not. However, at the end of the day, he is the owner of the property. And if they don't fix the furnace, you're going to need to fix the furnace so the house doesn't freeze. Right. So he needs to know that. But it doesn't happen often, but it can happen. And you just need to be aware that if it does happen, it is still your house. So you need to protect it. This is not much different than a bank owning a loan and somebody owes taxes. They have to go pay the taxes. Otherwise, they lose their position and can't foreclose. Right? It's the same type of a concept, right? So they need to know that is possible and it could happen. It's not likely, but they should know that, right?
Hey, is there anything in the paperwork that says large problems that are not just, happened yesterday, like a furnace is a longer term thing? Is there anything in the lease that says that the owner would help or participate?
No, it does have some language for the least amount, but not the most amount. Which, by the way, if that does happen, you put the furnace in, say it cost you $5,000. I add it to the price of the house. So when they buy me off, I get paid at the end. So I'm not losing money. I'm just putting it up, right?
Okay. Yeah, it's their furnace in the end. Okay.
All right. So the other thing is the property doesn't need major repairs, because you're not going to put money into a deal. You can't protect the money. So you're not going to go put $5,000 or $10,000 into the property so you can go lease option it. Because you put $10,000 into the property, and then all of a sudden the seller's like, I don't think I'm going to lease it anymore. After you put the 10 grand in, and he could do that legally. I mean, you could sue him and there'd be a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
So you're not going to put money into a property. These deals are only done with pretty properties. However, I will tell you, if it's a dated property, like, a 1950s or 70s kitchen or 1990s kitchen, I do them if the price is correct and sell them on handyman specials. And we let the buyer actually do the updates. But the house has to be functional when you do that.
Yeah.
Meaning that the furnace and all, it has to be insurable. You have to be able to live in the property.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's another prerequisite. You should also get a bank statement from the seller to make sure that what he owes is correct. You don't want to have a problem where you sell a house for $220, take 20 grand. He owes 200. He has $100,000 payoff, to find out his actual payoff is 210. You don't want to have that happen. So you should check that. You should also check to make sure that the taxes and insurance are escrowed in the payment. So when he's making his monthly mortgage payment, everything's being paid, because realize that you're putting together an agreement between a buyer and seller, and you want to make sure that your seller can perform.
Right.
So you have to be the most ethical person in the room when you're doing this kind of stuff. So you need to make sure all that kind of stuff will happen. Right?
Makes sense.
Let me see here. Okay, so the last thing is I do not do anything on any transaction, whether it's this transaction or not. I do nothing on any of these transactions until I have a memorandum signed. A memorandum to me means that we're taking our verbal words and putting them in writing. So the seller knows this is our price that we agreed on. This is the monthly payment amount we agreed on. This is the term or the time that we agreed on. And if we talked about a down payment, this is the amount on the ground. I do nothing about that. I do nothing. I'm sorry. I do nothing until I get that sign.
Right.
The reason why is because I'm not going to go looking at houses and thinking I got a deal if the seller has not agreed to all of that stuff first.
Mhm.
If you don't have that, don't go looking at properties. Don't go pre-qualifying properties. Don't go looking for tenants. Don't go looking for anything until you get a memorandum signed. The memorandum allows you to go do your due diligence. What that does in our world is it triggers the deal meeting. And then in the deal meeting, you're going to go draft your documents and do your due diligence. Is it worth 200? Is it a good neighborhood? Is it dysfunctional? Is the price going to be right? In other words, my language, is it going to be popular enough for you to go get a bunch of buyers?
Right.
Right. All right, good. So those are the prerequisites. So let's go through the actual checklist now. We've got about 20 minutes to do that, so I think we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what triggers this checklist at this point, once you've got those prerequisites done,
Mm-hmm.
is the memorandum is signed.
Right.
This is what triggers this. In other words, you do not do this checklist or do these activities until the memorandum is signed.
So that's step zero.
Yeah,
That's step
I
zero.
know people are not going to listen to me and they're going to miss this point. Do not do the next 20 minutes of what I'm going to explain to you unless there is a memorandum signed. The seller it's a psychological thing. They have to sign off that they agreed to this price, to this payment, to this term or time, and there is no deposit. Or if there is a deposit, you agreed on what the number is, and the deposit is not $20,000.
Mm-hmm.
It's 50% of 3%, so they get 1.5% of the sale of the transaction for a deposit at most.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You could push it to 2.5%, but you're just giving away your own money. Don't do it.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So I use DocuSign for all my electronic documents. So once you get your memorandum drafted, you can use DocuSign. There are many other systems that you can use. Basically, what you do is you fill out the document, you scan it into the system or into your computer, and then put it in the system, and it makes it so you can send it to them and they can sign it electronically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you don't have to worry about, even if they live across the street, have them do that. Okay, so you can get it done.
Yeah.
Right? The next thing you want to do is you want to make sure you have evidence, usually a mortgage statement, of what exact payoff of the loan is before you start signing the option agreement.
Mm-hmm.
You should make a copy of that statement and keep it in your files so there isn't any confusion. Right. Another thing with COVID that we found is that people were behind in their payments.
Yeah.
Another thing is you find out they have a loan modification.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing you find out that they might have a forbearance. So the difference between forbearance and a loan modification, a forbearance means that the bank is trying to collect the past payments in a 12-month period or a 2-year period. So the payment will elevate from $1,000 to $1,500 for the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's forbearance. Forbearance technically means an addition to the original agreement. Where a modification is different because they're going to take the past due balance and they're going to add it to the end of the loan, and they're going to modify or change the loan agreement. It's not an addition. They're going to change it. And usually what they do is they'll put it out to 40 years and lower your payment and get more interest on their part, obviously, but they're modifying the original agreement. See, a forbearance, they're not modifying anything. They're just putting in an addition on it. So there's a big difference between those two words.
Yep.
Okay, so you want to make sure all that stuff is not there by looking at their bank statement or their monthly mortgage statement.
Mm-hmm. Do you also check to make sure the payment is correct? What he said.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have to be correct. I mean, I've had deals like this where the payment is $1,800 and they're only charging me $1,400 because they're putting in $400 a month themselves.
Oh yeah, as long as they agree to it, sure. Okay.
Yeah. But you want to know because the more you know, the better you can construct the deal, right?
Yeah. Well, if the payment is 18 and your deal is for 17, $100 got to come from someone. So
yeah, and I use that as a selling point because I tell my buyer, listen, the seller's he's paying $1,800, you're only paying $1,400, so I suggest you don't miss a payment because he might change his mind later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so now Now you're going to draft your option agreement. Okay. Now, and you're gonna want to do it for 90 days. And like I said, you could use any denomination you want. We use 100. I strongly suggest you use 100. It's best that you send that. Well, I used to do it with cash, but it's best if you do it with a check now.
Yeah.
So that they can call it's called negotiating a check. That means that they actually cash the check and it's stamped on the back and you get it back. So make sure you make a photocopy of that check and put it in your file so you have evidence that they actually consummated the deal.
Right.
In case there's a problem later on. Okay. So what was I going to say about that? Something else.
Well, that gives you the legal right to sell it because you have an equity share in the property. You're not just some guy off the street selling houses. That's not quite legal. You're not a realtor.
Right.
But with the money.
Right. So if you're new and you don't want to pay for a package like what we have, a documents package or coaching or expensive package, and you're new and you're trying to do this on pennies, which I understand. I would not stay there very long. If you're under the belief that you're going to do a deal without any help, I feel sorry for you because you're kind of really risking your shit. You're better off to pay someone like us or someone else to help you, because you'll get more done quicker, right? You're not saving any money. You're actually losing money when you don't pay somebody. But that's here nor there. What you can do is you can just go out. I think it's called eforms.com. I think it's they say it's for free, but I think they charge $80 for the document or something like that. In any event, you can get an option agreement and get a lease agreement for them. Their lease agreement is not going to be like ours. It's not going to cover all the maintenance and the repairs and everything. It's just going to be a lease agreement. And then once you get that, you can go to a company called Legal Shield. And I think it's $25 a month. And you could submit the document. You'll get an attorney that's in your state, usually in your city. And you could take whatever documents you drafted and you can send it to the Legal Shield people and they'll tell you whether it's legal in that state. Okay, so there's a couple ways where you could do it on the cheap. I strongly, really strongly suggest you do a couple deals like that just to get going and get some cash in your pocket, and then get somebody like us to help you and get the right documents and get the right forms, because if you do it the other way, I promise you, I've been there, I've done that, it will kick your ass. You'll be in court, you'll have problems, you'll have sellers manager, you'll have buyers, but you just got to do it the right way. Remember, what is creative real estate, Peter?
That's controlling what controls the property.
And in this case, it's the paperwork. So spend the money, get the right paperwork, and do it correctly, because that's what creative real estate is, right?
Well, that's what contracts are for, is to protect everybody involved. So you want to be sure you're okay. The other guy makes sure he's okay. If you make sure everybody is okay, nobody can complain. You don't wind up in court.
Right.
And everything's understood up front, like the memorandum, everything else. So you don't go anywhere until people agree. And they write that they agree. So you can't complain later. You agreed.
Right.
Okay.
All right. So it's best, the next one, moving on, it's best to have the house vacant. So here's what happens. There's two ways you can sell this house. If it's vacant, you can have like we use an automated system in Creative REI Reply that just is amazing, because it gets them to show their driver's license and enter the house, and we give them lockbox codes and all kinds of stuff. And we have no trouble with people going in a vacant house. So when you do it vacant, you can do individual showings any time of the day.
Yep.
When it's not vacant, you have to group your showings together. So like everybody comes at Saturday between 11:30 and 12:30.
And you show up physically.
And somebody shows up.
Somebody.
When they're in the backyard, we do it. Sean does this. If Sean has a deal that he's not sure about, what he does is he'll sign a 30-day option agreement, and he'll get the seller to show the house. So what he'll do is because he's in Peru or in Florida and the house is in like Ohio, right?
Yeah.
So what he'll do is he'll send a bunch of people to the house between 12 and 1, and he'll be on the phone with the seller talking to him.
Yeah. But it's still like an open house type thing. So it's all at one time.
Yeah. Okay. Right. And he'll be on the phone talking to the seller, answering questions, or just be on a Zoom call on the kitchen table on a computer.
Yeah.
Right. So Either way, you can happen it. I will tell you that when the seller is living in the house, it's very hard to do this type of deal, but it can be done. And you know that because you've tried that too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I used to go and I'd be like the realtor. I'd show up, let them in.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So the next thing you want to do is you're going to want to get keys for the property so you can have access. Obviously, the best thing to do is to have boots on the ground if you're not there. Boots on the ground means someone can go there. They're within driving distance. We usually find them on Craigslist. A good place to find them is property managers. You can get a property manager to do this for you. Or believe it or not, a realtor would do it for you because you could pay the realtor 1 month's rent and they will do all this for you.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, you might have problems. They might want a piece of the option agreement, which is what you need to avoid, but it does happen. Meaning they want a percentage of the option agreement when you get the money or in sell. You could also Thumbtack is a great place to do this. You can get like maintenance guys that do maintenance, handyman guys, right? That's another place to find them. You go on Thumbtack or what is the other one?
Angie's List.
Angie's List is good. Rabbit.com.
Oh, I hadn't heard that. Rabbit?
Yeah, rabbit, like a bunny rabbit.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
So you just go on there and you just look for like handyman special type of guys, or hell, you could get bookkeepers. You know what I mean? You could get, those kind of people. Like a bookkeeper would be a great person to go show a house, right? Just have them because they'd be meticulous enough to do all the paperwork, right? All right, good. So once you get the keys for the property, you're going to want to make sure you put a lockbox on the front of the house, someplace that's visible. Don't put it on the house, on the door all the way in the back that nobody can find, right? Especially if you're showing houses in the winter and it's snowy, right, where you live. And
dark at night.
Yeah, and dark at night, yeah. So basically what you just do is you go on to Amazon.com and for like $25, $23, you buy a lockbox and you just ship it right to your boots on the ground, or if you're going to do it yourself in your backyard, you just ship it to your house.
Mm-hmm. Also, Home Depot, Lowe's has them.
I was just going to say Home Depot's and Lowe's has them too. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we actually have a property condition form that we use, but I'm not going to cover today. But you're going to want to document the condition of the property the first day you walk in it. Mm-hmm. So either you or your boots on the ground need to go to the property. And we have a checklist we use, but it's not hard. Just take pictures of everything. Take pictures of 2 or 3 rooms. I have an iPhone. My wife was bitching at me when I bought my iPhone. My iPhone was like $1,500 and I had to pay for it because I didn't put it on my plan. And she's like, why do you spend so much? You can go to AT&T and all that, right? And I'm like, man, just leave me alone. The reason why is because I have 3 cameras on the back of my phone. And it takes unbelievable shots of the real estate inside. It has this zoomed out feature. It's called 0.5, and it zooms out and it gets the entire room.
Yeah.
And it just makes wonderful pictures for online. So it's worth it for me to have that phone just for that feature. All the rest of it I could care less about, but I want that camera feature because I take some amazing pictures of houses. Right? Mm-hmm. All right. So we're doing good so far. We're almost through the checklist, Peter.
Very good.
Are we
53
doing okay?
minutes. You're hauling.
Yeah, we doing okay?
We're doing fine.
So maybe our listeners want to respond to us. Maybe they want to put something in the chat. Maybe we'll see if we're doing okay. They can give us a scorecard.
Well, right. Hey, can people get a hold of this checklist?
It's in the chat. Yeah, Unfortunately, it's not a giveaway, and it's in our software system, so you're gonna have to go there. But it doesn't matter if you go back and listen to this. You can write it all down.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of giving the store away here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All right, good. So you're going to want
a checklist. Yeah. People were like, "What do I do?" And you don't know where to start. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just one thing at a time. Just take care of one thing at a time, and you can do it. 10 things at once, nah.
All right. So you want to document the condition that the seller left you the property in. Right. So you want to make sure that you take pictures or take videos. You want every little thing documented. Like when I say every little thing, I'm talking about turn the furnace on and video it running.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like run the hot water and say, ouch, the water is hot.
Show the steam. Well, it's like when you rent a car. You're supposed to like make sure there's no dings and dents and smash. So you bring it back and they say you did it and you didn't did it.
Right. Okay. So what I do is I have those pictures sent to me from my boots on the ground, right? From a smartphone. They can email them to you. Or if the pictures are too big, the file's too big, you can use companies like Dropbox. I use Mediafire. It's much better than Dropbox. Mediafire, it's free. And you can upload files there. They can go get a free account. It's called Mediafire. Mediafire. Okay.
Yep.
And they can send you the pictures. Good old John. Thank you, John. Lots of good nuggets. John said lots of good nuggets. All right. So next thing is had the house cleaned. So I say don't spend money on a house. It's worth spending $200 or $300 to have it clean and smell good.
Yeah.
Peter's very good at this. I'm not as good as he is, but I just have the house clean. I strongly suggest that you do one of a couple things. You go to Home Depot or Lowe's or one of those places, or Walmart for that matter, and you can get those. What are they? Everglade or Everlade, whatever they are.
Yeah, Everglade. Yeah, little scent things.
And you plug them into the wall. The ones that plug into the wall. And I strongly suggest you get something that smells like cookies or baking.
Apple pie.
Yeah, you don't want to get like vanilla or blackberry or what. No, you want to get a food one so it smells like something's cooking. Okay. And then have the house clean and you're ready to go. At that particular point, the house is ready to be marketed and it's ready to be put on sale. Okay. And then we have another checklist for that. It's called the seller's checklist to market and show the property. I can go over that another time. I'll just give you some quick highlights. Like a lot of places, what we do is we put it on Zillow for rent, not for sale. We put it on Marketplace if you can. However, Marketplace is very fickle. I've had my account shut down 3 times and now they won't reopen it because I was selling a house. And they said, I think it's because they put good credit, bad credit, no credit, that they consider that to be discrimination, the liberal bastards that they are.
Yeah, but it's no credit, any credit, whatever. You're not discriminating. You're taking everybody. It makes no sense.
So let's just get straight. Let's just get it straight, Peter. Let's just get it straight.
Yes, sir.
Zuckerberg and what's his name? Elon Musk are supposed to have a fight.
Yeah, that's so weird.
And I hope the hell Musk kicks the living crap out of Zuckerberg because he deserves it, the little freaking weasel. So there's how I feel about it.
I hope he squashes him.
Yeah. Anyways, once you start showing the property, you can go to, like I said, I use apartments.com. I take pictures of it and I put it on apartments.com. Even though it's for rent, I put in the ad options to purchase or for rent to purchase. So what I do is it's a little annoying, but I'm going to have to explain this to each person that actually this is a for rent to own, or actually you're going to buy this house and I'm going to give you a rent, and you'll find somebody in there. But the good thing is they'll come to you with a application already, and they will come to you with a background check done.
Oh yeah, because you're looking for rentals, and you can't put it like a heading, like our usual house for sale. No bank can't put that. Doesn't get in there.
I think it will, but I never try because I don't want to lose my account.
Yeah, they might think you're misusing the account. Okay.
In any event, if you're not going to do that, then we used to use screenthetenant.com, or findtheseller.com. Those were who we used to use before they did that. Nowadays, Zillow even does it. Zillow even has a link to actually do the credit reports. Okay. So you're going to do all that stuff. You're going to start showing the house, sending people there, right? You're going to get buyers in the house, and then you're going to want to get them an application. And so when we do it in Creative REI Reply, what happens is people go to the house. We post it on those sites. People go to the house, and it automatically does it. So the only time we know anything is when somebody's standing at the front door and they're sending us a driver's license, and we have to approve to let them in. and when they send us an application. So quite honestly, if realtors knew how we showed houses, they'd probably send out the mob for us. They probably want to assassinate us because we don't do all the crap that they do, and we sell more houses than they do. So, anyways, the last thing I want to say is once you set up your, this is a little golden nugget before we bug off here. Once you set up your seller and buyer together, I strongly suggest you encourage the buyer to go apply for a mortgage, an FHA mortgage, the first month or two, so they can find out why they've been rejected. And they have 2 or 3 years to work on it, so they can actually get a mortgage.
Yeah.
Right. Like for example, suppose it is credit, or suppose they owe $10,000. They got 2 years to spread out the payments to pay the $10,000. Right. You could go to. I used to use mycreditteam.com, but I don't use them anymore. I use Bedrock Credit out of Danbury, Connecticut. His name is Steven. I forgot his last name. He's really good because he not only does credit repair, but if you tell him I told you to call, he can not only do credit repair, but he will work with the client and get them ready. If they say they're getting qualified for a mortgage and they went and applied, and here's what's wrong, he will work with them to make sure that they do actually get help. And he'll work out a plan for them. He'll work with them on the credit, and he's not that expensive, like $300 or $400 or $500 or something like that. And the buyer actually pays for it. So the reason why I tell you that is because we tell our buyers we are going to help you get your credit fixed and get qualified for a mortgage. We're telling our sellers that we're going to do that for the buyers, and we tell the buyers. Now, I will tell you, most people don't do it. Out of sight, out of mind. Like I'm dealing with a property right now. A guy signed a 2-year lease with me. He's been in there 5 years. My loan is matured, so now I got to pay a $5,000 mature fee, which I wasn't expecting. I missed it.
Oh, yeah. Really?
Yeah, and he's looking to and I have to go refinance the property. And my seller actually has a purchase and sales agreement that I gave him a month ago, but he's just like not doing anything about it. So I know he's pissed off at me because he didn't know about the 3% increase. He forgot about that part. So if he doesn't do something soon, I will be talking to him about either you're going to execute or you're going to get out, because he's in a $240,000 option agreement, rent to own, and the property's worth $400,000. So I make $1,000 a month, but if I pull him out of there and put somebody else in, and I had an insurance claim on it, we just spent $100,000 fixing the house.
Yeah, he's got nothing to complain about.
Yeah. So, anyways, I hope that was helpful for you. I know I buzzed right along. I hope that was helpful for you. If it was, please give us a thumbs up or a like. If you're watching us on Facebook or on YouTube, give us kudos. I work hard to make sure you guys are getting the right information. If for some reason you want us to cover a topic, I would gladly entertain that. Just go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. Top right-hand side is a support button. Just send me a support ticket, and I will gladly. I just randomly pick topics. So if you have something you feel like you want specific information on, go ahead. Hell, I might even get you on the podcast with us. If you want to be on the podcast with us and answer your questions, then we can arrange to have you on the podcast with us and actually interview us and have us answer your questions. So if you want to do any of that, just send me a support ticket and I will definitely entertain that. Actually, that would be fun as hell. So please like us, subscribe to us, leave us a comment, give us our report card. Don't forget to check the link inside the description. And we are over and out. Next time we will talk to you will be on episode number 370. And I don't have a title yet. So there you go. All right. Have a good week. Flourish and prosper.